Where
are you at right
All
now,
right,
Katie?
and welcome to Sports on Tap. And Ed wanted to get in a question before we started there. It's the Sports on
Wow.
Tap, and it still is the summer spotlight because I think this is what the last day of, I guess technically summer.
No, I
No,
think
we
it's
have until September.
yeah,
September
it's September.
21st.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
good.
okay. All right. Well, then we're okay then. Well,
3 more weeks of this, Rob.
I know. Well, we have a great show for you today and a special as Katie Nageotte joins us and along with Ed Dick, Josh Jeffy, and we want to thank her for joining us. She was locally here from Olmsted Falls, Ohio. Everybody remembers her. She's been all over the place lately. I don't know if she even sleeps at this point. She's been all over. She's an NCAA Division II champion at Ashland University. She also went to the University of Dayton, and now she's a USA gold medalist in pole vaulting. Katie Nageotte joins us. And Katie, thanks for taking time to join us here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Well, Rob, we can add to her rash of awards and titles 2 times Sports on Tap guest. So we can add that
Yeah.
too.
Can we just make her friend of show?
She can be friend of show.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Perfect. I hope so.
You literally jumped to the line on that one.
No, we can't thank you enough for coming on, especially with everything going on. I know you were in Tokyo. You won the gold medal. Then you came home, and I mean, it had to be crazy. But we'll get into that here in a minute. But let's talk about how everything went in Tokyo and your experience, traveling there, and then with the event. I mean, how crazy everything was going. I mean, we talked to you before you went to Tokyo. So how did everything go on your way there?
Yeah, I mean, everything went smoothly. I didn't really know what to expect, but I also knew to expect anything and everything. So I think because I had heard stories of people being in the airport for 8 hours plus, when I was out in 3 to 4, it wasn't that bad. And it was just as soon as we landed, it was like you were one station to the next, to the next. You get your COVID test, and then you do your immigration stuff, and then you do more with COVID. So it wasn't just waiting around for hours and hours. And then they took us right to the village, and we had to wear masks everywhere, inside and outside. And especially with one of the athletes, one of the pole vaulters testing positive and being out, I really was diligent about that because, even though I'm vaccinated and I wasn't within close enough proximity to be considered contact tracing per their definition, you still just, you realize how much, like how quickly your dream could be taken from you. And so I just I was just praying, like, get me to the runway. Like, as long as I can get there, then, all bets are off. But I will say it didn't feel all that different. And granted, I don't have another experience to compare it to with a village, but it still felt really special. The energy was really cool. You're around the top in the world, in their sport. You're around the best of the best. They're all around your age. It's just a really cool environment to be in. So it still felt special.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the village because you don't really get to know us non-athletes don't really get to know what that's like. So when you're in Tokyo, you're at the Olympic Village. Talk about that. What it was like being in the village. What kind of food you ate. What were the food stations like. Talk about that experience because you had the you lived there basically for a week or 10 days, however long you were there, and just talk about how you adjusted to that.
Yeah, I will say what was interesting and something I didn't expect was just how much walking there was compared to what I normally do. I just walk downstairs, hop in my car, and go. But you walk to the dining hall every day, which wasn't far by any means, but you're adding that 3 meals a day. And then you have to walk all the way up to the front of the village, which was, I don't know, 10, 15-minute walk to go to practice. And so there was a lot of extra things that were requiring energy that I do think I felt a little bit. But yeah, it was pretty. I mean, it was cool being around the other athletes. I know people saw Yao Ming just sitting in the dining hall. Like
Oh
you
wow.
see people in the elevators that you watched on TV. I met the rock climber that got silver, and so it's cool. It felt kind of like being back in a college dorm, because you have like a little suite, and the rooms are kind of bare. They're very just bed, little meat like living room area, and then that's about it. So and then you just walk to the dining hall. The food was good. It wasn't anything crazy elaborate, but there were just so many options that you never really got sick of anything. There was a ton of Asian food, and there was American food, burgers, and then pizza, pasta, pretty much anything, and any dietary restriction. There was a whole gluten-free section, salad bars, sandwiches, like anything you wanted, you could get there, and it was open 24/7, which was really nice. So you just go whenever you were hungry or whenever suited you. So it was
Did you find yourself leaning towards something that you was your favorite that you tended to eat that you maybe couldn't get here in the United States?
I would say nothing I couldn't get in the United States,
right.
but I really liked the halal station. I liked the sushi. It was very basic. I think they just wanted to make sure that no one was getting sick. So it was cooked tuna and cooked shrimp,
Right.
vegetables, but it was good. I like sushi a lot. So, yeah, they had like peel and eat shrimp. I did that a lot. They had I didn't really necessarily stick to one particular thing all the time, but I just was glad that we just didn't have the option or the opportunity to get sick of the food, just because there were so many options. I liked the breakfast. The breakfast, there was anything you could want, like eggs any which way. You could get waffles, pancakes, like just an assortment. So.
In case you didn't notice, I'm a huge fan of food, so that's what I wanted to kind of dive into. So,
me too.
Josh with the hard-hitting food questions there.
Hey, we got to know. We got to know.
Yeah.
Hey, so Katie, let's talk a little bit about the competition now. You're, if I'm not mistaken, you qualified in your very first jump. Is that right? So, like, you qualified, and then you're done for that day, correct?
Well, I was, but I didn't know it at the time. It's one of those things where you hope that it's one and done, but there was no auto. Well, maybe there was an auto qualifier, but they stop when they get to 12 women, and so we didn't know what that height was going to be. But with the rain delay, it just started pouring after my attempt. I got so lucky where I was in the lineup, because I was able to take my attempt, and then the skies just opened up and I didn't have to jump again. But in normal circumstances, I probably would have had to jump again, because there were 15 of us, and I don't think they would have taken that many had it not been a rain delay. I think they were just trying to be nice and, say, okay, we already had someone get injured. Like, we've been out here for 3 hours plus, we'll just shut it down, take an extra few to the final, and call it a day. And
so that's, I mean, you qualify. So what do you think at the night that you qualify and you're going into the finals? I mean, what are your, what are you thinking, and kind of what's your mindset, going in between that time frame? I was so excited after the prelim, because for me the prelim is, and I think a lot of people will say this, the prelim is like almost more stressful, because when you get to the final, it's like, okay, this is it. But the prelim, you have to make it to the final, and there's just an added stress to it that is not very fun. But I will say, getting on the runway and getting comfortable with the visuals and everything helped me a lot to just feel better. And so after the prelim, I was so excited, and I kept thinking to myself, like,
oh, you can win this. Like you can do this. And going in, I was so excited. And then I got to the track on Thursday for the final and started warming up, and my quad on my takeoff leg just would not loosen up for anything. And I had been feeling tightness in my legs throughout the whole time I was there, just in a way I don't normally feel. And that part of that might have been from more walking. Part of that might have been that the beds were not comfortable and my hips couldn't really like sink into them and maybe like put my hips at a weird angle. But like, it was just, I was constantly tight and rubbing things out. But so this particular day, my quad just, it kept grabbing and cramping in a way that I've never experienced. And it was the closest thing I've ever felt to, if I jump off this wrong, it's going to tear. And so my warm-ups were just not great. You know, a lot of, I don't want to say wasted attempts, but just trips down the runway trying to loosen it up and trying to get comfortable jumping off of it, because, you know, it's one thing to just kind of do some jumps in place, but to run full speed and then jump off of it, you know, you don't know how it's gonna be. And then my focus was on that as opposed to like my cues coming in. And so yeah, I was dealing with that, and it did end up loosening up. I actually just kind of, at one point I just like looked up. I was like, okay, Dad, if you can just like loosen this up, please, I will take care of the rest. Like, I will not ask you for another thing today. Like, just please help loosen this up. And it did very soon after that. But I think a lot of the warm-ups, I didn't really get any great jumps. And then because of that, my first two jumps in competition just weren't, I was a bit hesitant. I missed my first two attempts, which is not like me. And so, you know, it took me a minute to find my rhythm, but once I did, it definitely, you know, came together. So, but
Yeah, and with your jumps, I know, you know, that when you have the pole vault and you have to get used to the pit, does that take a long time? Or are the pits kind of the same everywhere you go, or do you have to kind of get almost like with the poles you use, you have to kind of be friends with them and get used to them and know how they're going to react? And is that the same way here? Because I mean, that's pretty nerve-wracking, I'm sure, when you're like, out of all times, you're starting to tighten up in the biggest moments here, but you know, you put it aside and continued on.
yeah, I will say, for the most part, it's all the same, but at the same time, you know, each place is a little different. And I will say there was something about this plant box, I would say, that when you planted the pole, it just sounded different. It sounded hollow. It sounded really loud. And normally it doesn't sound like that, like in a stadium where it's like poured in. It only usually sounds like that at a street vault where, you know, it is hollow around it. But so I don't know. I noticed that I was just not rolling poles the way I normally do. And I think a lot of girls experience that, because that's not usually, to only have 4 of us clear that next bar, that's not very normal. And so I don't know if there was something just a little funky with it. But I don't like saying that because the guys did fantastically well. So I don't know. It just seemed like there was something. Like, even in the prelims, I wasn't rolling my poles like normal. So there were adjustments made that day that I wouldn't normally do, just to kind of make it work for what the circumstances were.
Now, Katie, how do you feel having more spectators or a full stadium? How do you think that would have affected your thinking, if it would have? Because, you know, it was well noted that, you know, there weren't fans in the stands, there weren't people there, and, you know, could it be that the lack of people in the stands, you would hear that more of that hollow box or things, you're more in tune to the different sounds that you may not necessarily hear when there's more of a buzz in the stadium and there's more things going on, you know, not within your control?
Yeah, I would say yes, except we have been competing in stadiums without fans. And I've competed like even just at local tracks where, it's all filled in relatively the same.
Yeah.
So, when we practice, it sounds a very specific way and it should sound kind of similar to that. So I, yes, that maybe I was hyper in tune with it, but other vaulters that I've talked to since then noticed that too.
Okay.
So I do think that there was something to that.
Do you think your experience would have been a little different if there was more, if there was a packed house under a quote unquote normal year? Because it is the Olympics. I mean, that's a huge stage.
I maybe I will say the bar that I ended up jumping to win is a very high bar. It's higher than what won in 2016. So it still felt like the Olympics. Like it's
Gotcha.
still, when I was out there, it was still nerve wracking in a way I haven't experienced before. And, our coaches are up in the stands, our teammates are up there. So it wasn't completely empty, but it was off to the side where, you pretty much only see what's in front and behind the vaulter with the camera angles. So, and I think something my coach has been good at is, no matter no matter what's going on or the adrenaline, whatever, you just come down and you hit it like normal. And when the bar goes up, my adrenaline kind of takes over no matter where I'm at, no matter how many fans there are. I mean, I've jumped really high at local college, like high school meets, and I've also done it in stadiums. So it could have elevated some of the other women too. But I knew going in that wasn't going to be a reason. If I messed up, that wouldn't be the reason for me. So,
Hey, Katie,
yeah, go ahead, Ed.
hey, Katie, when you hit 4.9 meters, did you think that was good enough to win?
I know better than to get ahead of myself. But I was so excited because I knew that was going to be really hard to beat. And even if she ended up beating me, I at least jumped 16 plus feet at the Olympic. That's really as good. I would have been attempting a personal best, like tied personal best. So I was just really happy to get that because yes, I knew that was going to make it very difficult, but I also knew that she could. So I was ecstatic. And especially with how ugly it started, just to find my rhythm and to clear another 490 bar and get another 490 bar under my belt was really good. And I coming into that jump, when I took off the ground, I really thought I had messed it up. I kind of just in my head was like, well, that was weird, like you messed that up. And then I made it, and I wasn't expecting to, because you can feel immediately as a vaulter when things are just really fluid, the energy transfers so nicely. And that wasn't that jump. I mean, you can kind of see, I almost like come off the side a little bit. And my coach said what happened is I was so far under that the pole just sucked me straight upside down and shot me straight up. But what's weird is normally when you're too far under, it spits you out at the bar. So I could probably jump like that 100 more times and not clear that. So it just.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you. You had it came down to your last jump. I mean, how nerve wracking was that? I mean, and walk us through that. I mean, if it wasn't for that last jump, it came down to that. I mean, what's going through your mind on the last jump? You were, you might. I don't even know how to describe the question because it's so nerve wracking. I mean, I remember watching it and I'm like, holy cow! It comes down to this. And, when you take off and you could tell when you cleared it, you were so excited in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. That was pretty exciting, though.
Thank you. it was awful. That's obviously not at all what you want to happen at the biggest meet of your life. Come down to a third attempt at opening height. Like, that's as stressful as it gets. But and I don't know if I should be, proud of this or embarrassed, but apparently no one, man or woman, has ever needed a third attempt at an opening height and then gone on to win. So I don't know if I should be.
Trivia question.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But it was very nerve wracking. And I'm sitting there trying to tell myself, like, it's just another meet. It's just another meet. Like, it's just your cues. But I'm also sitting there thinking, you had a lot of people wake up at 6 a.m. to watch you jump. Like, do not. And, my coach has no-heighted at both Olympics that he went to. And so I didn't want to add to that. And I kept thinking, like, okay, well, he's done it himself. He won't be that mad at me, like, if this doesn't go my way. But, that's about as stressful as it gets for a vaulter, is that third attempt at an opening height. That's what you hope does not happen. And it doesn't help. Everyone has given me a hard time about that. Like, friends, family. I think the first thing my family said to me was like, "What were you doing?" Like, I don't want to do that. I don't go into a competition saying, I'm going to, like, mess this up just for fun, give people, like,
I think you were doing it for the ratings. I mean,
Yeah.
you want it to be nerve-wracking. You knew people were watching all over the world. Let's make this interesting.
Let's think about this. The Cavs came down from 3-1, first time that ever happened. So why not 5 years later? First time your back's against the wall and you come back and win the gold. That is extremely proud, not embarrassing in my mind.
No doubt.
I felt like it was actually the perfect representation of my year and my career, where it's just, I always had potential, and I just had to kind of fight my way to the top. It didn't always happen for me immediately. It wasn't always smooth sailing. So usually a little rocky at the beginning of each stage of my career. So I think it just summed that up perfectly.
So you win the gold medal, and you're on your way, and you look into the camera and you say, "Cleveland, this is for you," which was a great moment. Unfortunately, you were the second one to say that. Have you heard from LeBron James about that?
No.
Well, you should have. So
He's got big fish to fry.
But that's okay. He's doing his thing now. I think he gave that mantle to you as the hometown champ. What was that feeling like? Like, and what made you say, "Cleveland, this is for you"?
I had thought about it going in, like, just because I am so proud to be from Cleveland. And my hometown has just been behind me forever. I mean, I've felt the support for years, not just this year, not just this meet. So I was asked in an interview not too long before, would you say that? And I just laughed because I'm like, I have thought about it, but it wasn't something I made this big planned out thing. I wasn't thinking about it at all throughout the meet. It just, in that moment, it just felt right. And the camera was right there. So I said it, and I meant it like that. It was just pure emotion at that point. And I really felt that, and I wanted everyone back home to know, like, I was thinking of them, and I felt their support even though they weren't there. And
that was pretty cool.
When we they always show they show medal ceremonies, and and I'll be honest with you, I get goosebumps every time the United States national anthems played, and I don't participate. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how was that for you? On the top of the podium while that was being played.
That's about as good as it gets, and I've always wanted that. And at national anthems throughout my career, I would start kind of tearing up, thinking that maybe one day I'll hear this, like, on the podium, like at the Olympics or at a World Champs. And it's so powerful. And I was crying before I went out there. I was crying on it. And I was, trying to keep it together. Like my mask was on and my lip just underneath was just a lot of like the like hyperventilating, like keep it together, keep it together. But it just in that moment it just all hits you, and that's when you think of like, you know, all those workouts I didn't want to do, like moving across the country, like making this big change, like it was all worth it. And you know, I thought of my dad, and I thought of, you know, all my previous coaches, like everyone that has helped me to get to this point, because it's not an individual sport. Like at the end of the day, we go out there by ourselves, but it's everything my coach has taught me. It's everything all my previous coaches have taught me. It's the support my mom gave me for 5 years before I had a contract. It's, you know, it's not individual. So, yeah.
Very cool. Were you at the closing ceremonies? I don't know if it was over by that time, because I think you have an amount of time you're allowed to stay after the event.
Yeah. We had to leave 2 days after our final. And to be honest, you know, with my family not there and with COVID stuff, I was ready to get home and see everybody and celebrate. So I was okay with that. I just kind of was ready to come home.
Now, before you
So,
left,
sorry, Rob. Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, before you left, did you see any you know, famous other USA Olympians before you left Tokyo?
I mean, we not like Simone Biles or, you know, anyone like that, but we hung out a lot with the baseball team because they would come down. We had an athlete lounge in our building, and so they would come down, and, you know, we would come down and just sit watching. We'd go back and forth between the baseball games and then the track meets. And I mean, track was every day for weeks. So, you know, you had someone every night competing. And so it was really fun to go down there and just get to explain a little bit of that to the baseball team, and then, but hang out with your teammates. And it was a really cool environment to be in.
Very cool.
So talk about since you've been back in the United States, talk about your whirlwind adventures. You know, we kind of briefly spoke before we came on that, you know, you really haven't had time just to sit down and just kind of, you know, be by yourself, so to speak. So just talk about this whirlwind. I know everyone probably now wants to get a little piece and talk to you. So again, we appreciate you coming on with us, but just talk about your experience now coming home as an Olympic champion.
It's been insane. You know, especially up in Cleveland, Ohio area, it's been insanity. The meet and greet that I did was supposed to go until 8 p.m. and I was there till 11, just people wanting an autograph, people wanting like a 30-second conversation, and just so nice. And they sat through the rain to then do that. So it just...
Yeah, that day I remember it downpoured for a little while.
Yeah. And then just that, and then going out to dinner in, you know, Westlake at Crocker Park and getting recognized in the restaurant, and just it's been crazy. And yeah, I feel like it's just been very like, okay, I have this now, and then in a couple hours I have this, and then I have this, and I'm still trying to practice because I'm competing next week one more time. And then it's just been a lot and just very nonstop. And I understand that that's how it works, and I am so appreciative of it. But I just had a little bit of a meltdown like yesterday. I was like, it's so much, like, and I don't want to sound ungrateful because I really am. It's the coolest experience ever, and I know I'm getting this because of what I did, and so I wouldn't want it any other way. But I just realized I haven't even had like 2 hours to sit on my couch and watch TV.
Oh man!
So part of that's you know, my choice, and so I am trying to do a lot of these sorts of things now, so that in my off season starting next Friday, I can really take it as easy as possible for the next 6 weeks. But yeah, it's been a lot, but it's really cool. It's really cool.
Well, the most important question now is, when you do have 2 hours to watch TV, what are you going to watch?
Oh boy. Well, apparently there's a new show on Netflix that is really good. Everyone's been raving about it. I think it's called Clickbait or something. And I love anything that has twists and turns and is kind of like a thriller. So that will be my next big binge, I think.
I was gonna say I know beforehand you said you were gonna watch probably a lot of Netflix in Tokyo when you were in your room because you weren't gonna leave your room too much.
Yeah, I ended up just watching a lot of TikToks, making TikToks that ended up
I was gonna
getting
say
a
that
lot
was
of
pretty
views.
cool though. You had a really cool. I tell people to follow you on TikTok. I think on your Facebook, you had some really cool things that showed the gear you had in
Yeah,
Tokyo, which
that was
was
sweet.
crazy, and kind of your trip there. I thought was interesting. You know, you can kind of almost
Right.
you felt like you were there, hanging out. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I knew my mom, of course, was going to be like, send me pictures every step of the way and like tell me everything. And I knew that other people were going to be asking a lot of those same questions. So I figured if I put it in a video, then that would cover a lot of that, which is good. So, and I feel like with social media now, my goal has always been to make pole vault as popular as possible. I want there to be more just attention on it, I guess, and not just necessarily for me, but just for the sport in general to help with, opportunities and in the future making it more popular. So if this can help do that, and if we're in an era where you can make it accessible, people are curious what is going on in the village, what is it like, and the gear that we got was insane. And so I I figure if I can share that with people, then awesome.
So you got your mom to go on TikTok?
No, no, no.
Oh.
But I did post it to Facebook
I
and
gotcha. I gotcha.
Instagram, so I just shared it to all my channels.
So have you been wearing the gold medal around quite a bit, or is it now in a safe keeping
It
somewhere?
is it is currently downstairs on my bookshelf, but I have been taking it most places with me. So
Yeah.
um, when I I went to a bachelorette party this past weekend for my best friend, and I texted her beforehand because she hadn't been back to Ohio. I hadn't seen her, and I just said, I am going to sound like a jerk, but do you want me to bring my medal? And she was like, yes, absolutely.
That's
I feel
awesome.
like kind of a jerk being like, here's my gold medal, but people want to see it,
Oh
so
heck
I
yeah.
feel like I should ask. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's gonna want to see that, and I'm sure it's. I mean, what's the weight on the medals? Are those heavy or?
I haven't weighed it, but it is heavy. I would be very willing to bet it's more than 5 pounds.
Okay.
Because it just, you pick it up, you think it's going to be heavy, and you're like, oh, wow. And then you pick it up, you're like, oh, wow. Like every single person that picked it up in the meet and greet, that was the reaction. There was a second wow for how heavy it was. So
That's so
yeah,
cool. I'm
I had
sure
to keep taking it off during my interviews because it was just like pulling like on my neck.
your
It
neck
felt
all of
like
a sudden is getting huge.
yeah.
It's so strong now from
Yeah.
wearing the gold medal.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the girls. You know, there's girls that look up to you now. I mean, at the meet and greet, I'm sure you had all kinds of kids and parents and girls out there that look up to you. That like in 2016, some of the events you fell short in, but now you're a gold medalist. And what do you say to those girls? You didn't give up and you kept working hard to get where you're at now. What's your message towards some of the girls that might be going through some, or people in general that are going through some hard times that maybe they feel like their dream is out of reach, but you can't give up, and it could still be a possibility to reach that goal.
Yeah, I've said this before, but I hope that I can show people that if it doesn't happen immediately, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I think a lot of times, especially young girls, look at successful people on social media and think that they just have it all because that's just how it is for them. And there are some people that like were great right out of college, got a contract. I mean, you look at Sandy Morris, like she was great right out of college, has medaled, unfortunately not at this one because she got injured, but at every event. I mean, and so I hope that I can show people that it doesn't always work like that, and that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And I think I have tried to be very transparent on my social media with my entire career, just the ups and the downs. And like, I had to move, to get this. I had to move across the country, kind of start over, really get out of my comfort zone. And that's the thing, is it's not just keep getting after it. It is, but sometimes you have to do things that make you uncomfortable, and it's going to be a lot of this. And so as long as it's a general upward trend, like you can see some pretty cool things happen. But yeah.
Very cool. And yeah, I mean, it's great advice for a lot of people out there. And guys, any other questions for Katie before we let her go? Hopefully sit on her couch for at least 2 hours. I mean, at least. And maybe
I have so much laundry that I'll at least be seeing, but I will be doing so. Once I get through that, then it'll be, at least it's mindless stuff. Right?
I was going to say, at the very least, you put it in and let it sit for an hour. I mean, that's at least, an hour, maybe?
Yeah, you just fold every so often.
Folding's the worst, though. That's the one part you're like, but
I'm determined. While I'm going, I might as well keep going. But
any last thoughts or questions, guys?
Just Katie, congratulations on everything. I mean, it's awesome, and we really appreciate you coming on. Have fun on your off season. Well deserved for sure.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Katie. Thank you for coming on twice. It's not very often that we mostly focus on high school football and the like, and the fact that you're generous with your time to come on and talk to us. We're very appreciative of it.
Oh, no problem. I really do enjoy doing these sorts of chats, and especially for Ohio. Like I absolutely.
Well, we really appreciate it. Congratulations. We are honored to have you on our show, and we'll keep in touch, and hopefully, have you on again, and we'll talk. Maybe we'll let you have the off season off. Enjoy that, and when you're back in season, we'll have you on and tell us what you're doing, and keep in touch.
Next year, World Championships are in the USA, so that could be a new talking point.
There, very cool. Well, we look forward to that.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Katie.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that's Katie Nageotte joining us here on Sports on Tap, the Summer Spotlight for Ed Dick, Josh Jeffy, Katie Nageotte joining us. I'm Rob Trauman. We'll see you next time on Sports on Tap.